going on, guys? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Patrick Siepman. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at a Vikings mock draft following free agency slowing down and following the Houston Texans trade where the Vikings now select at 11th and 23rd overall in this year's upcoming draft. We're going to get wild here, so stay tuned. But before we dive into it, guys, I am asking for your help. We are closing in on 23,000 subscribers here on the channel. First off, just thank you to all 22,600 of you guys who have hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. You know, just seeing the support that the channel gets over and over again, it just really, keeps me motivated. But if you guys are new here, I'm trying to hit 23K by the end of this weekend. We just need 400 of you guys. So this video is out to you and you're watching right now and you see right down there, you're not subscribed. Lock us in. It's more Vikings content heading your way for diehard Vikings fans. So hit that sub button. Well, let's look at the Vikings draft capital as it stands right now heading into the draft. They have the 11th overall pick, 23rd. They got round 4, pick 108 as well. And they also have the 130th overall pick in this year's draft class. Then they got 2 fifth-rounders, one from Kansas City. Then they also have a 6th-round pick they got from Carolina. And then also the 7th-round pick that they did get from the Houston Texans. But draft night comes around. We have a trade here on the channel. The Minnesota Vikings are trading up to the number 3 overall pick, and they are giving up the 11th overall selection, the 23rd overall selection, and they're going to give up the 130th and then also a future 2025 third-round pick. I think this should be enough to get it done, but let's just say it's not. I'm willing to move off 130 and the future third-rounder and putting our 2025 first-round pick to get this done because the Vikings, no matter what, go and get your guy. But for this mock draft, we're going to be basing it off of the Vikings making this move. So here are the remaining draft picks. The Vikings would be selecting 3rd overall, and then they would also have a 4th, 2 5ths, a 6th, and a 7th. For this mock draft, we're only going to go over round 4, 5, or round 4 and both picks in round 5 because I haven't really looked at the true day 3 guys, just yet. So we're going to be going over 4 picks in this year's draft. But coming in at 3rd overall for the Minnesota Vikings, they select North Carolina quarterback Drake Maye. And this is not what I would do. Personally, I think this is what I would do, but this is what I think Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi want to do. We've heard reports that they love Drake Maye. Other NFL GMs, they've came out and they have said that the Vikings are all in on Drake Maye, and for right reason. This dude's an absolute stud. He can touch every blade of grass on the football field. And yes, his negatives are he does not have the best pocket presence. He doesn't have the best feet in the pocket, which could get him in trouble. He's got a little bit of slower release, not the most consistently accurate quarterback we have here in this year's draft class, but I think you're able to work it out. And I think Kevin O'Connell, looking at a guy like Drake Maye and saying, what he doesn't do well, I can fix that. I can turn him into the next Justin Herbert, the next kind of Josh Allen type of quarterback because he's 6'4". He's got this big body. He can touch every blade of grass on the football field. And I think with a guy like Drake Maye, his landing spot matters more than anything. Where he ends up going in this year's draft class will either determine if he booms or he busts. Colin Cowherd said if he's ranking his quarterbacks, number 1, Caleb Williams, and number 2, whoever the Minnesota Vikings select. But speaking about support system for Drake Maye, I mean, could you imagine this? It's Drake Maye, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. You got 2 elite offensive tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. And you also got this man right here, Kevin O'Connell, to sandpaper a young quarterback's game. I'm definitely intrigued in this move, but maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe you don't want to trade up for number 3 overall. Let me know your thoughts. Would you accept this trade if the New England Patriots hit you up before the NFL draft and say, we want the 11th, 23rd, 130, and 2025 third-round pick? Would you guys do it? A for accept, D for decline. I'm typing my A's, no doubt. I think Drake Maye is going to work out. And, hey, I'll tell you what, the Vikings pull this trade off, man, it would be special. I think he would change life in Minnesota, and he has unlimited potential. And I really do believe it. The Vikings are the best landing spot for this guy. He's got a lot of boom or bust in his game. He gives me that Herbert, Josh Allen kind of mold where he's this big quarterback, big-time arm, big-time mobility. You just need somebody to kind of sandpaper his game and get the most out of him, and I think the Vikings would do so. But speaking about the other 3 picks the Vikings would have in this year's draft class, I think the Vikings still have a ton of other needs. I think it's still defensive line, offensive line, and cornerback. We're going to knock all of those out. So I got the Vikings at round 4, pick 108, selecting Texas A&M defensive tackle McKinley Jackson. And McKinley Jackson, he is just that typical run stuffer in the interior of the defensive line. He's that guy who's going to eat up double teams, open up lanes for, whether it's Blake Cashman or a guy like Ivan Pace, coming up and meeting the running back, but also has some interior pressure capability. That's why he did have 3 sacks this past season. Watch his tape for a little bit. Still need to dive more into him, but this is the pick for the Vikings in the 4th round. Just more of position of need here instead of BPA. I would be thrilled about McKinley Jackson. And overall, the Vikings need to have more talent up front to this defensive line. I think the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell over the past 2 seasons have been a finesse football team. I think they have kind of, they've obviously beaten teams, when they went 13-4. They beat them on the outside. It was a lot of Jefferson. Thielen was there that year. Obviously, Hawkinson joining for the second half. The Vikings beat him on the outside, didn't have a run game, couldn't stop the run. Adding a guy like this would be a huge kind of addition to the Vikings front 7. And they already actually signed Jerry Tillery yesterday, a former first-round pick out of Notre Dame. That Vikings-Notre Dame pipeline continues to shine. But, hey, he's a former first-round pick, had an okay year last year, 31 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs. But, again, just adding more dudes up front for Brian Flores and his defense with McKinley, Jerry Tillery. I think the Vikings D-line would be a whole lot better. We're going to stick defensive side of the football here for round 5, pick 155, and we're going to take Kamal Hayden, the cornerback out of Tennessee. And this guy is a boomer bust player. He reminds me of a lot of like Deron Bland, where he's either being a playmaker and he's jumping routes or he's getting beat over the top. I would actually love that player under a guy like Brian Flores, because what's my favorite word today? Flores could sandpaper him and kind of get the best out of him. That's why I love how kind of strong the Vikings coaching staff is. You can kind of go all in on a huge boomer bust prospect either side of the football, because you got a great defensive mind and a great offensive mind, leading this coaching staff and leading this team. He would be a great pick. You need more dudes in the secondary. I like Byron Murphy a lot. I think he's more of a CB2. I like a Caleb Evans. I like Mekhi Blackman, but we don't truly have a CB1. I'm not saying he will be one, but I think you're just adding more ammunition to that secondary and just really hoping one of, either him or one of these young guys really pop, or maybe Byron Murphy does take that next step. Getting to another interior offensive lineman here at pick 162. It's the man out of Baylor, Clark Barrington, who has dealt with injuries over the past couple of years. The last full season he did play was all the way back in 2020, which obviously may be a little bit of a concern, but listen, he's from Spokane, Washington. He's 6'5", 308 pounds. I think this would just add, more, I'll say, insurance to a Vikings offensive line that definitely needs it, because, I like what the Vikings have done, this offseason a lot, but they haven't addressed the offensive line, didn't bring back Dalton Reisner. So really, we don't know who's going to play left guard this year. Maybe it's, maybe if they want to stay up in this year's draft, it's a guy like Cooper Beebe. But if they wait till round 5, then Clark Barrington could be a really strong option. Him and Ed Ingram, obviously a little shaky there at that guard spot, but it would be better than nothing. And I do think he would be a great pick at 162. But this is the draft I have. We did not dive into the last 3 picks because I haven't really dove into any, 6th or 7th round players. This is what I have. The Vikings get Drake Maye at pick 3. They go McKinley Jackson at pick 108, Kamal Hayden at pick 155, and Clark Barrington at pick 162. Grade my mock draft for me, A, B, C, D, or F. Be honest with me. If you guys saw this draft for the Minnesota Vikings, how would you be feeling? My opinion, you get Drake Maye. I'm going to probably type my A down in the chat. But like I said, guys, if we get any more updates, if we get any more rumors, news, whatever it may be around this football team, I want to be your go-to Vikings YouTube channel. There's tons of other good YouTube channels out there, but personally, I think I do it better than anybody here on the platform, and I hope you guys, join in on the fun, because I will be your go-to guy throughout it all, leading up to the NFL draft. Hit that subscribe button, lock us in as your go-to Vikings YouTube channel.